Hey everyone, I wanted to do a video. I've been trying to do this video all day, but it has been really difficult because I can't stop sneezing. I think that the tree pollen here in Illinois or wherever I am, it must be high because I have been sneezing nonstop for the last several hours. And I finally had to break down and take an allergy pill. And this is definitely not one of those days where you want to be at the store or be outside. So I decided, you know what? Let me wait for the allergy pill to kick in, and then I will try to record this video again because I've been struggling, y'all. But anyway, happy Monday to you guys. I wanted to go ahead and do this video because I wanted to talk about the Clark sisters movie, which I saw Saturday night, and I have watched it 4 times since it aired Saturday evening. And I have to say that I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well done. It was well put together. And I was a little leery about it simply because Lifetime does not have the best reputation when it comes to biopics. We might recall that disaster of a biopic of a Leah movie, right? That was a terrible movie. So I felt that this one was going to be different and it wasn't going to be bad simply because I knew that the Clark sisters, Twinkie, Dorinda, Jackie, as well as Karen clark-sheard, were heavily involved in the production of the movie as well as casting. I also know that it was executive produced by Mary J. Blige, Missy Elliott, and Queen Latifah. And I knew that with those 3 women on board, they were not going to allow this movie to be whack. I was just hoping and praying that they would do justice by these women, by these phenomenal women, the best gospel group of all time. All right. The best selling gospel group of all time. I just wanted to make sure that they would do it justice. And I personally think that they did. All right. I personally think that they did. And I was very impressed with hearing that the women who were cast to play in this movie sang those parts that you heard. I read that, I believe in a Variety article, that all the women, of course, including, those are my birds. I'm sorry, y'all, if y'all hear my birds. The women that played in this movie, they did their own parts, as well as clark-sheard, who played her mother, Karen clark-sheard. They all sounded phenomenal. They had such beautiful singing voices. I was so impressed with just the overall movie. Everything just looked really good. And I think personally, I thought it looked really authentic. Okay. Now, so let's kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the movie. I'm not going to talk about every little single thing that happened in the movie simply because I think that if you've watched it, you already know. But I did want to break down just a few of the scenes in the movie. But of course, we're going to start off with none other than Mattie Moss Clark, Dr. Clark. People like to say things like Kanye West is a genius and Joe Jackson, the way he was able to, create this group and make them successful. Mattie Moss Clark, Dr. Clark, does not get nearly enough credit for what she was able to do with her daughters in the gospel world. All right. And Mattie Moss Clark was played by none other than Aunjanue Ellis, which I think did a phenomenal job. She did that. Okay. She did that. Sometimes I had to remind myself, okay, that I was not looking at Mattie when Aunjanue was playing her, because when I tell you she played the hell out of this role, she did that. She absolutely did that. So I was just amazed at that. But I've seen her in a lot of movies, so I'm not exactly completely shocked by the fact that how well she studies, because I don't think I've seen her in anything that I didn't like. Honestly, I think everything that I've ever seen Aunjanue Ellis in, I've always enjoyed it. So I'm not exactly shocked that she played the hell out of this role, but she plays the matriarch of the Clark sisters. Okay. And when the movie opens, we see her with this song in her head. She has a song in her head in the middle of the night, and she wakes her daughters up to come downstairs because she has this melody. She has this song in her head, and she wants to teach them the parts, and then they're going to blend it. They're going to harmonize it. Okay. And so we see that. And then we see, of course, it immediately jumps over to the girls being older. Okay. And they're singing in the church. They're singing these songs that their mother composed and that Twinkie, of course, helped with as well. As we see that, as the story develops, we see that Twinkie is truly her mother's protege. She has reared Twinkie up to compose, okay, to direct, to do all of that. She's pretty much created this little Mattie, right? So we kind of see that. And one of my favorite parts of the movie is when Mattie, who we come to know as she actually is the international director of these choirs, right? She's in the Kojic church. She goes around, she travels around, to different parts of the country, basically teaching choirs how to be choirs. And she has Twinkie in tow with her, right? Because Twinkie plays. So we see that, and we see them in choir practice and how she just was so honest and brutal about how she taught them. If they sounded terrible, she didn't sugarcoat it. She let them know they sounded terrible. When she threw the shoe at the girl for chewing gum, those were real accounts of Dr. Clark and how she used to rule and teach with an iron fist. Okay, she expected perfection. And she was able to perfect that blend, those runs that you hear with the Clark sisters. She was able to perfect those things with her girls. Okay. And so we also see this interesting dynamic that plays out between Pastor Clark, and I'm going to call her husband Elber Clark, Pastor Clark and Mattie. Now, I told you, Mattie has a job here. She is the international director of these choirs, right? She moves around the country. She just moves from church to church to church. She's always on the go, her and Twinkie. But she's also the first lady of a church, right? And we see her as the first lady of a church, and she isn't able to be the first lady, right? We never technically saw her in her husband's church because honestly, just to kind of go off on a quick tangent, this is a movie that could have easily been like the New Edition where it had 2 or 3 parts, right? We did this in a couple of nights, but I know they had to condense it. So we never see that dynamic of how it is for her as the first lady. We just hear the conversation between her and her husband. He wants her to, he feels like she is, emasculating him because he is the pastor of a church. He wants his first lady there, and she can't be there because she's out working. Now, you have to remember, this was very brave of Mattie to do, especially during this time in our, as far as like the timing of all of this. This is like the early 70s. She wasn't doing the dutiful first lady things that she should have been doing. All right. She's out working. She has her own identity. And that had to be very, very challenging and difficult for him as a pastor of a church. And so we also see the abuse that takes place, right? He becomes abusive with Mattie. We can assume that he's done this before because it just seemed too easy, right? And then we also see the dynamics between he and Jackie. Now, Mattie had Jackie and her brother Leo before she got married to Pastor Clark. Okay, so she already had 2 kids. So you see why he treated Jackie that way, because that wasn't, as he said, you ain't even my child. That's how he felt. That Mattie came with 2 kids prior to meeting him. And so Jackie leaves, of course, and then we see that Mattie had to make a decision, and she chose her daughters over her husband. Again, a very brave decision by Mattie in the 70s. This is the Kojic church we are talking about, y'all. Things have changed a lot, But we are talking about Mattie Clark doing something courageous at a time where most women wouldn't even have dreamed of not only divorce. Divorce is one thing, but she was divorcing a pastor, the pastor of a church. She was divorcing, the first lady was divorcing the pastor of a church in the early 70s. That had to be scandalous. That was a scandal. All right. But she went on and she decided she wasn't going to get married no more. And she poured all of her efforts in to her daughter. She decided she is going to, of course, focus on singing for the Lord, creating for the Lord, serving God. But the vessel would be her girls. And that's what she did. And she poured everything into perfecting their craft, perfecting their sound. And that's what she did. And we saw the girls go on to basically create and record songs, and they traveled a little bit. And they finally, Twinkie, who, again, Twinkie is a genius in her own right as well. She composed a lot of different songs. She composed Is My Living in Vain? And that becomes one of their standout songs. Okay. That becomes one of their standout songs. And Twinkie goes off to decide that she is going to sell her catalog. Now, prior to this, you have Karen, who is the baby of the family, still she's very, very shy. She's trying to figure out her role here because we know who Twinkie is. All right. Dorinda has a beautiful voice. We hear the girls, we hear them singing, but we hear Karen, and Karen has this big, booming, beautiful, soulful voice, right? The runs and everything like that. She just blows, but she's not as confident as her mother would like her to be. And so both of these, Twinkie and Karen, are offered side deals, right? They're offered solo, and Karen doesn't take it. Okay. Her mama's taking care of the business. That's the way it's going to be. That's what she know. But Twinkie, on the other hand, just trying to get a little bit of independence, as you can see, decided to sell her catalog for a Lincoln. She wanted a car. She sold her songs for a car. And you see how that whole scene, it plays out where, Mattie just pretty much berates her. Basically, you stupid. Like, how could you do that? You just sold away your future. You just and reminding her that even though she had grown, she not really grown. She just a child. And we're going to see that later in the movie when Twinkie goes off and gets married, that we see that her mother never really lets up on that. Parents have a way of always reminding you of some stupid shit you did. And so Mattie did that. So, we move on in the movie and we see the different women. They go off to have their lives, right? Dorinda gets married. Jackie was married first. Dorinda goes off to get married. We see Karen gets married. These women are all getting married, but Niecy, the one that just can't act right? Niecy, the one that is just of the world. She is of the street. She just likes to do what she do. Okay. She is the rebellious one, like what you might call the preacher's kid that just got to go out there and do the exact opposite of what she know. Okay. She just out there in the run. She running around, her and her mama button head. She just for the streets, right? Niecy has 3 kids out of wedlock, right? You remember the scene where she had to tell her mama that she pregnant, that she probably was going to have to, they didn't like wearing the little moo dresses and stuff like that, which I'm sure they wore because they were pretty conservative. But she was going to have to just kind of wear something a little bigger because she was pregnant. And you could see the hurt in Mattie. And also, as they were kind of panning to Ingenue Ellis's face in that hurt, you could see that she was probably thinking all this time, like, how can we sing for the glory of God? And how could we be out here singing these songs when I have a daughter who just can't seem to get it right? She just cannot act right. She went out here and she got pregnant and she ain't married. She ain't married. And I'm sure that hurt Mattie simply because of how she was raised and what she believed. Remember, they were supposed to be of the godly world, not the secular world. They tried to keep the secular world out, but Niecy was so attracted to that world that, she just got caught up in it, right? And so we kind of see that dynamic with Niecy throughout the movie, okay? Then we see that they able to go on to the Grammys. They really making it big, and it's all because Twinkie writes a song, and she has a beat that is familiar to the secular world, but the girls kind of know it too, and they realize, oh, that's Stevie Wonder. That is Stevie Wonder's song. I knew why I knew that. And so they are singing. And I love this scene because she's just kind of writing in the moment. She got a few lyrics, but she's kind of composing it right there with the girls, and they're singing it. You brought the sunshine in my life. And then they sing it for Mattie. And I think that's a funny scene, because what's funny to me about that scene is how all Mattie cared about. She just like, is it going to be perfect? Is it going to be ready? Because remember, Mattie is a teacher. She is a perfectionist. She believes in crisp and clean, just neat. She wanted to sound good. All right. That's how she is built. So it's so funny when she just want to make sure that as long as the song going to be good, it's going to be all right. It's going to be crisp. It's going to clean. It's going to be perfect. And then she walk away. She's like, she don't even know. That means their mama don't even realize that's a Stevie Wonder song. That melody, that beat is a Stevie. But what's funny about that whole thing, and this is real life, is how that very song crossed over onto to the R&B charts. And it did so well out there. I mean, it's so this is where they really made a lot of their money off of. It did so well that they had clubs, regular clubs, secular clubs saying, can you please come and perform for us? That they was playing that in the clubs. They was playing that on regular radio. When I was growing up, that's how I knew that song. It wasn't because my mama was listening to a gospel station. It's because they was playing those songs. They played the Clark sisters on the regular R&B stations here. So that was a huge hit for them. I mean, Studio 54 wanted them to come and perform that song. So just to show you just how big they became after that. Okay. So like I said, they were nominated for the Grammys. They just did their thing, right? They really did their thing. And so we see how they blow up, right? We see that scene where they go to the Grammys and they want their mother to be a part of it. They want their mother to be up there on stage with them, to be a part of all of that. And so she goes up there, and I remember those. I honestly, I kid you not, I remember these very moments. I remember these very moments like they were yesterday, because I honestly remember all of those different shows that I used to sit down. We used to all sit down and just watch together. So I remember them with their black sequins and the thing on their head. Mattie got in trouble for that. She had to go before the Kojic board, and these leaders, these male leaders, all right, you just show you how misogyny works in the church. These male leaders basically condemned her for that. She was, they told her she should never, ever, ever do that again. And she, again, pushed back on that, but she never performed with her girls again, right? She wanted them to understand, we're singing, my girls are singing for the glory of God, but they didn't see it that way. They felt that she was being just downright disrespectful in the fact that she would even get up there. Remember, she is the international, music minister for basically, she basically heads the music ministry in their church, all these choirs and things like that. And they felt like what she did was just outlandish and embarrassing to the church. All right. And so we never saw Mattie do that again. So this is one of those times where she had to make a decision. This is the actual picture of the ladies. She had to make a call, and I feel like she made the decision not to perform with her girls again, because she still wanted to maintain that relationship with her church. And when I saw that, I saw that little part in the movie, and I thought to myself, how did they even know that they perform? If you so in the church and so, you ain't of the world, you don't believe in all that secular stuff, how did you know anything about the secular stuff? Did you watch it? That's why, like, sometimes these church folks, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but we move on. I'm going to kind of fast forward here. We move on to now Niecy is on her third kid, right? And they have blown up because of that song. and they are now about to sign a record deal. All right, Mattie finally got them a decent deal. They're about to sign it, and she asked her mama, "Can you watch my kids?" And she's like, "You watch your own kids." Now, when I first saw that, and I saw how mad she got, and then she went on to not sign the contract, I thought to myself, is she mad because her mama wouldn't watch her kids? But then I thought, no, it's deeper than that. She did that. She just basically, again, was always that rebellious one. And I feel like that just kind of sent it over the top for her. And she made the decision she wasn't going to sign the contract. And that scene was so powerful because it just reminded me of how mamas, black mamas, how we do. It's like her mama, she said something along the lines of, because you ain't left nothing for me. You just left me with the scraps. And then the mama say, "Why do you hate me so?" You know how we know how black mamas love to use the guilt on you. Like, why do you hate me? And so what she did in that moment, Niecy, played by Raven Goodwin, she was like, you left me the scraps. You gave all of yourself to everybody, but you left me with the scraps. So I ain't got nothing for you either. I ain't got nothing for you. And I just thought that was such a powerful scene. That really kind of like almost made me cry. And then Dorinda stands up and like, "You know what, Niecy? Yeah, you may be my sister, but you are hard to love." And that kind of hurt me. That kind of hurt when she said that, because of course Niecy comes back with, "You know what? Y'all my sisters. I love y'all, but you ain't, and y'all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We human, but you ain't never been hard to love." And that just kind of hit me like, wow. And then that was the end of it. We didn't see her again until, of course, Mattie's funeral, which we'll get to in a minute. But before we do, I want to kind of get into the exit of Twinkie. Now, Twinkie was the next one to leave, right? Twinkie had enough. She decided she had met a little boyfriend. She met a little man that showed a little attention, paid a little attention to her, and she was out too. And that scene was pretty hard to watch too, because I believe every bit of it. Now, I do believe that, again, Twinkie she couldn't get married. Twinkie was the one that had to be on the road with her mama since she was a little girl, because she was playing, she was her mother's protege. Dorinda was able to go get married. Karen was able to get married. Jackie was able to get married. And Twinkie was left doing all the work. She didn't have a personal life. So she kind of did just run off with the first guy to pay her some attention. And that hurt Mattie so very much. And that scene when she's leaving and Mattie asked the man, like, "Are you working?" And he's like, "Well, no, but I'm gonna get a job when we move all the way to North Carolina." I didn't even understand what the hell they moving to North Carolina for. What? He ain't got no job. I never even understood that. Like, why y'all moving and he ain't got nothing to move for? But anyway, and when he pushed her mama, I said, "Listen, girl, you already leaving with a man that ain't got no job, but you let him push your mama, girl. That was it for me." And I could almost predict it, even though I know this is a true story, but you could almost predict that he wasn't gonna be shit. He just wasn't gonna be shit after he pushed her mama. And then of course we go on to see that he really was not shit. Her mama called it, and her mama made sure she, like mamas do, always make sure that they remind you of the stupid shit that you've done. Like, you should tell you that she sold all her songs for a Lincoln, just reminding you of those things. And that was just another one of those powerful things. Like, these girls they had to get under her. They had to get from under her. And I understood that. I absolutely understood that. As genius as Mattie was, she was also a product of what she grew up knowing. And it doesn't always mean that just because you were taught that makes it right. Like, yes, Mattie was a genius, and she created some genius women that went off to get married, went off to have phenomenal careers, right? But that doesn't mean that the way she reared them was right, no more than what Joe Jackson did. It doesn't mean that they were right. They ruled with the iron fist. They kept their kids in line. But that doesn't mean that everything they did was right. And it didn't fit for every kid. Some kids were just more like susceptible to falling in line, so to speak. But some kids just wasn't. And then you see how Twinkie went out there and really literally did just marry the first guy that paid any attention to her. And you saw how that turned out for her, because she was so desperate to get away from her mother. She literally did go off with the first man that said hey to her. And that was a mess, right? to rebel against her mother, Niecy went out and had a whole bunch of babies. Now, she eventually did get married and all that other stuff, but just how that dynamic played out. And of course, after Mattie passed away, Niecy came back in dramatic fashion, getting up there on the stage and everything like that. And I've saw some interviews saying that for the most part was true, how that kind of came up. But it was, I heard somebody say it was the uncle, and I think it was Jackie or somebody. It wasn't two sisters that went up and got Niecy off the stage. I think it was like the uncle, and then one of the sisters went up there and got Niecy. You know, it's always one. It always got to be one. As soon as somebody died, always got to be some drama. If it ain't no drama at the funeral, child, it's always somebody doing the most, being dramatic, and it seems that they were portraying Niecy as that. And so overall, I think it was a really good movie. I do think that it could have been probably 2 nights. I think the casting was done well. I got to be honest, the woman that played Twinkie for the longest time in the previews before I actually saw the movie, I actually thought that was Jill Scott. I don't know why, but I had saw the preview of the thing when she had sold her catalog, and I could have swore that was Jill Scott. I did not know that wasn't Jill Scott until I watched the movie. But nonetheless, it was a very, very good movie. And it just reminds me of, what they call church hurt. Like, a lot of the stuff that we grew up knowing in church or being taught, even though it may have put us on the right track and may have given us a good foundation, it doesn't mean that it was right. And Denise or Niecy, she goes by Apostle Denise Clark-Bradford now. She is married, and she's also in the ministry, of course, as you can see. And so as funny as it was that she was dying to get away from her mother and the teachings and all that stuff, it never truly left her, because she is also in the ministry now. Now, she does not have a good relationship with her sisters still. Her and Jackie are very, very strained, and I found it interesting. You definitely should go and watch the interviews that she did with Larry Reid live. I watched some of those. I haven't watched any reviews on this. But I did watch a year ago. He did this interview with Niecy, and she talks about her 7 children. She talks about her relationships with her sisters, that there technically isn't one. Her and Twinkie have had some kind of relationship over the years, but she basically says that Karen, Dorinda, and Jackie are fake and phony. That's what she said. That's not what I'm saying. That's kind of what's coming from her. All right. She also mentions, and it came out in the Larry Reid live interview, that her first, I believe it's the first kid, it was one of the 3 that she had out of wedlock. One of them was actually fathered by the bishop of their church. Yes, child. And that's some scandalous mess. And basically they chose him over her. They chose to believe him over her. And it's, like I said, it's a very compelling interview that she does. She does several parts. She actually does several parts with Larry Reid. And like I said, I'm going to probably post some links down below. But I don't know if you guys saw the movie. I think it was a great movie overall. I hate that Niecy is still estranged from her family. But I do like that the Clark sisters were willing to expose their family in this way and expose the flaws of their mother, because I saw Mattie as flawed in this movie. You could see her as a very flawed individual. That was this is what she knew. And this is how she raised her girls. All right. And the dynamics of these daughters, how she always wanted them to stay together. And I wish that they were able to be together. But again, like I said, Niecy still has some resentment and some certain feelings about her sisters. And I also saw her son. He was on live. His name is Larry Clark live, I think, on Instagram. And he was kind of talking about how some of the parts from a play that he put on were put in the movie. Like, they basically ripped it out of his play and put it into a movie, into this movie. But overall, I thought the movie was great. I have to be honest. I really, really liked the movie. The singing was great. I think the actors were the right people for the characters and everything. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. So anyway, let me know what you guys thought about the movie. Let me know if you liked it, and let's talk about it. Let's discuss what you liked about the movie or what you didn't like about the movie. Let's go ahead and talk about that. Anyway, this is my IG. Follow me on Twitter. This is my email. And you can support the channel if you so choose. All right. And I just wanted to share that with you guys today. Sorry about the birds, but I didn't sneeze. All right. Anyway, see you guys on the next video. Take care, guys.